Were you trained in the medical field at all, in a traditional sense?
Thank God.
I assume was that a thank God no, Jeremy?
Correct.
Yes.
Correct. Although there was a point early on before I was awake that's kind of what I wanted to do. But how I approach this, I think, because it's such a huge subject, is if you don't mind, I'll kind of tell you where I'm at and then show you how I got here.
Yep, that's fine. That's as good a way as any, Jeremy.
Oh, yes. Sorry, Nathan, give me some water. I've done so much talking today, you have to forgive me.
Yeah.
Okay.
Don't worry, I understand. Just to preface, Jeremy, I spent 10 years as a medical photographer, right, in hospitals and universities. So whilst I wasn't trained in medicine, I observed a hell of a lot of the way it was practiced,
sure,
which was basically brain dead and driven by commerce.
Yes, correct.
So what I'm saying to you is I do have an understanding of the bodily processes, not up to a physiologist's
about
level, but
years ago. Pretty much 25 years I've been doing this, with some time periods out of it where, although I was still researching and doing it, I just for one reason or the other couldn't do it, or was exhausted or what have you. But about 5 or 6 years ago, I really had my awakening at a very exponential rate, I would say.
Was there anything particular that triggered the beginning of that awakening?
Absolutely. I was in New Zealand and I had a large clinic. I built my own home on about an acre of land in a small rural community, and pretty much doing what I do, but not to the level I am now, I would say, but still great stuff. And I'm preaching, if you like, positive thinking and all the rest of it, and continuing the research as best I could. And then everything started to, in spite of what I was doing, go downhill financially and otherwise. This is a very condensed version of the story, of course. And but I was wise enough, if you like, to realize that everything has a reason. Bearing in mind I'd been through some extreme challenges already in my life and seen those play through, if not completely, certainly enough to see the reason or purpose of what had happened and what we'd endured. But I was not married to Natalie then, and I realized that basically everything was going to be taken away from me in spite of what I was trying to do. Now, I can't even remember how it happened, but I received Mary Cross' book, which I'm sure you know Mary Cross.
Oh, yes.
Good friend of...
Yes, I know Mary Cross' work.
Yeah, she's a good friend of mine now and a supporter of ours. And anyway, so reading her book was just the red pill, really. It just totally unleashed something, opened up something, and the next years or whatever it was just an accelerated. I almost couldn't sleep with research and basically in a very short conversation, the jigsaw puzzle pieces started to come into view.
Now, so are you talking about research into the problem that this planet has in its entirety, or the medical side, the health side, everything? Okay.
But at that point of the game, I just thought that was bog standard corruption. I didn't have an inkling that there was a deliberate agenda to keep us sick and tired and in busyness and ultimately to reduce our numbers. People that everything, we weren't meant to be sick in the first place. We weren't supposed to be in busyness, which is what we're in, busyness. And that we'd all become human doings and not human beings. So I went through a real baptism of fire and got very good at understanding law and language, spoke with David Windmiller. He was going to come to New Zealand. The Māori took me on board very much. They were going to fund a huge project that I'm now hopefully going to do with Hope, Valerie, and Fix the World, which we'll talk about maybe later. But at the same time all this was happening, and I was awakening at exponential rates, I could see the dark forces closing in upon me. To the degree that before they actually physically took everything I had, which was 16 police, 1 paedophilic lawyer, 2 bailiffs, and a couple of locksmiths and a big audience. Jeremy, they came and took everything from me.
What was it you were doing at that time that attracted so much attention?
Several things were the key things at that time. Number one, I took on, along with the Māori as well, but I took on the fraud of the banks, and knowing that they are really the root of all this evil in the financial system is the enslavery system, including involving departments of the government. I took it all on basically, and I didn't fully appreciate at the time. I'd become aware of the immense paedophilia.
You're in New Zealand at the time?
Yeah.
Yeah. New Zealand is particularly vile from that perspective.
Yeah. I know this now, but I was getting clues of it. Let's put it that way. But particularly, I'd really realized how much is in the Disney and mainstream children movies and stuff, and that had really got me going. Okay, well, you have to remember it was an intense period and I was literally being woken up by something, positive entities. It wouldn't leave me alone to get up and research. So the research was almost insatiable, and I knew I was being led, and part of it also led me to realize how much pornography and pedophilia was in Disney and the mainstream children cartoon movies and so forth, particularly Disney. Threatened me with, if I don't stop this, I will get hurt, and that is extremely frightening. I'm no warrior, so I at the same time New Zealand was going through what I call a depression rather than a recession.
Hello, Jeremy.
Hello?
Hello,
Jeremy? Chris.
Yes. Got you.
People definitely don't want us to talk tonight, I would say.
No, look, we do have means of fixing that, but that requires an individual that's not available just at the moment. We'll cover off on that in some future call, but yeah, I think you're absolutely right. There's something else going on.
Well, I don't get that level of trouble. I mean, I spoke with Hope last night for over an hour and a half, and no problems at all, really. But anyway, so can everyone hear me?
Yep. Are we on a stable line?
So far, so good.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay, that's good. All right. So at the same time, as all this is going on, and most people think I've gone crazy, I'm also still running a busy practice, but it's starting to dwindle because there's a near depression. So we are not producing enough money to pay our bills. We are fighting lawfully the system. Many of our clients were paying us in vegetables because they didn't have money. And as Hope and Valerie know, we have never turned anyone away and never will for lack of money. And the whole thing basically comes to a point where, they arrive on my doorstep in spite of lawful processes where I believed I'd won and basically take everything. Now, and I was suddenly homeless with literally homeless. Now, that was another great catalyst because I was absolutely certain, although that wasn't 100% all the time because you obviously have your own doubts, but I was absolutely certain because of my awakening, that needed to go. That needed everything, including my then wife, who I'm good friends with, but I knew we weren't meant to be married. And even though I was then living in literally a garage for about 6 months, still talking to everyone about how what I'm going to create, basically, which is where we are sort of today. And I put all the time I had into continued research on how to improve things and understand energetic, all these sort of things. So it was a very intense period, but looking back, it was a wonderful period of things were taking away from me to give me time to evolve myself, let go, completely trust in the process. And I would like to say that was 100%, but it's just not realistic. Of course, you have fears and doubts and, what the fuck am I doing? And, there's plenty of people there to reassure you that you've gone crazy and just grow up and all those sort of things. And at that point, people were starting to cross the street from me. I also should mention that because I was in a rural community of 5,000 people, up to that point where everything started to be taken away from me, I had 1,000 people on my books, and I was told that there's one big doctor's surgery were going to come after me because they were frankly losing business.
So you had one-fifth of the population of your town coming to you as patients.
Correct. Mm-hmm. Correct. After 4 years, yeah, and it had every sign of continuing to grow because I was getting people better, and also, which I set out to do from day one, when I started to really grasp the problem with I don't like the term alternative or complementary medicine at all. For me, it's like saying organic farming. It's not farm, it's farming, right? Mm-hmm. We are the medicine, at least when you have the real philosophy. Alternative complementary medicine is the new black. So there's still a lot of people out there, good people nonetheless, but a lot of people out there practicing allopathically and otherwise.
You will see when you look at that term, complementary medicine, it's actually dismissive. Yeah. It sidelines it, and it's a term that the system constructs in order to diminish that aspect of medical practice in the eyes of the general public. They say, you can do it a bit if you want to, provided you take our pills.
Correct. And after, and you will understand this, Chris, but first of all, complementary. How can I be complementary to a medicine that is philosophically completely opposite to my understanding of the truth? I can't possibly complement that.
No, what you were is competition.
Correct. And the key thing was if you didn't, I set out that there must be no barrier to being able to come and see me, especially if you're particularly unwell, because the fear levels are up there as well. So it was very clear, and people knew this, that money would not be an issue. If you needed my help and you turned up and asked for my help, you'd get it. There must be an exchange, because I think that's important. But bottom line, you have no reason not to come.
So you can understand
why that is very unpopular.
Yeah, no, so you can understand, why they shut you down. Okay, because the medicine is a business to them, as well as the other agenda it has in population control. And
absolutely.
The thing that everybody who's considering the realities of the situation that someone like Jeremy is in, you're not just facing a bunch of doctors local to you who don't like what you're doing. You're facing the medical association of that country, the police association of that country, and in fact the legal associations, whatever they're called in that country. That's the level at which the resistance to things like what you're doing is actually organised.
And that's exactly what I had. I had a client turn up one day that did not fit the normal. And this is long before I was really, really understanding what to do, although I was starting to knock on those doors. And it was I forget what they call it now, a honey trap or whatever, but it was a woman from the Ministry of Health. Mm-hmm. And she completely attempted to entrap me. At that time, it scared the bejesus, because when she suddenly brought out her card, and I was like, oh, fuck, and started getting notices and letters. And anyway, it's been an extremely positive and necessary thing, because what I've evolved out of that is, first of all, it nearly took my health. There's no two ways about it. I was full on. But by the time I left New Zealand, and I felt I had to get out of New Zealand, and this is also by the time I'd met Natalie, my wife, which has been a godsend for me in many ways. I was pretty damn sure that if I didn't go, I was going to get in more trouble. And when I left New Zealand, and I forget this journalist's name, but there's a famous, you might know him, Chris, there's a famous New Zealand journalist that also had to leave New Zealand.
Yeah, I know the guy you mean. He wrote several books where he'd gone through, he'd researched right down to who was actually delivering
the royal family.
Well, not only that, he'd worked out who was delivering drugs to who.
Correct.
In and around, and what pedophile ring was supporting the drug distribution for whatever else they were doing.
Correct. But it's only when I left and I discovered this chap, whose name I can't remember, did I really realize how close I came to and how I realized also that I'm protected. And hopefully I don't ever have to eat those words, but ultimately protected. Because when I listened to his interview, and I wish I could remember his name rather, I'd experienced a lot of things that he was describing in New Zealand. Mm-hmm. I'd certainly experienced the criminality of the justice system and the police. I'd also had several clients, one of which who had been put in the local mental asylum while it was still open, because he was a resistant spirit. And they'd had him stripped naked and they pumped him full of drugs. Excuse me. And the only thing that kept him sane was he was able to drink lots of water. And he told me that the local police, or some of them of which I knew, there was a long strip in Waiuku, about 5 miles long, just a straight strip through the flats. And they'd taken him and opened the door and hung his head right a few inches above the tarmac at about 100 miles an hour, whatever, down that strip to get him to break. And he was one of these extraordinary fuck you resilient spirits that you just can't break these people. Yep. Even if they were drawing their last breath, they go, fuck you.
Yeah.
He's an extraordinary chap. I mean, but anyway, and he told me the story, and I never doubted him at the time when he was telling me, because there's a certain air of truth when you're in the presence of people that have experienced such things. Now, I didn't see that directly, but I certainly saw it's the thugs in the uniforms. And by the time I left and listened to this interview, I realized how dangerously close I'd come to that. So, but going forward to present day, it then gave me another year and a half, if you like, of really delving into refining the research, and I was ever more committed that the solution is to open up the cells of the human being in the physical form. Because I realized that excuse my voice, Chris and everyone.
That's all right.
I'd realized that dis-ease is a blessing in disguise. I've realized that there is a truth vibration that you might call nature, if you like, and that our planet solar system is going through a photon belt, and more light than for a very long time was hitting this planet. And in order for people to fully evolve and feel this, instead of the stress that this is causing, we must open up their cells so they can receive this light in. And if they can receive this light in, they will be able to evolve, they will receive the messages that they need to receive, and they will be able to manifest what they previously haven't been able to in spite their efforts. Because currently they're so dense in the physical sense of the word, and of course there are some in the mental emotional, that they're unable to resonate with this vibration. So it became very clear to me that I'm a bit like Hope, really, because considering I was homeless when this comes to me, it's a bit of a joke, but it really became clear to me that I have to create a place that is replicable around the world where people can truly come and understand what dis-ease is and what it certainly isn't, so that they're empowered to change their lives simply, remove the fear, and start resonating, even if they know nothing about consciousness at that point or the bigger game, so that they will be able to receive this light, to resonate higher without any expectations of what I think you should be, and therefore become part of the solution. And I could see that because of the research, I could see that everything these creatures have done, which I believe them to be creatures, everything they've done is to create stress and toxicity, because they completely understand that in what you create inside the cell, which is chaos, which is what they've been creating, vibrational chaos, will resonate externally and create externally. So the solution has and always will be, in my view, at this point, if we can bring harmony inside the cell, then we will bring harmony, peace, and abundance outside the cell. Mm-hmm. And that's the crux of it.
That is about the simplest formula you could possibly imagine. And
yes, and I'm a simple man. I believe it to be true, and I've seen it, and I believe it to be the most powerful, simplistic thing that I can get across to people, no matter race, creed, so-called education, financial status, or what. And we see them open up. We see we coin some certain phrases because they're catchphrases to draw people in. We're trying to draw people in who wouldn't ordinarily come this way, such as, you're not sick, you're toxic. But it's way beyond that.
Yeah.
But I am absolutely committed to exclude no one. And if I can't reach the biggest dumbass on this planet, I've failed.
Well, see, we're facing...
So that's what I set out to do.
Yeah, Jeremy, it is really interesting that you've reached that point, because there's a number of things that Hope and I are involved with. Actually, there's a lot of things. But what's happening across all of them is we're coming to the realization that the processes that are developed, and we're talking legal processes and sovereignty processes, have to be absolutely the simplest thing possible, so that, as you say, any dumbass on this planet can actually understand it and enjoy it. And
I wrote a blog. I wrote a blog, I think it was 4 years ago, 3-4 years ago. And I don't think Hope has had the opportunity to read it, because I know how busy she is. I'm not sure. I think Barry might have done, but I know how busy she is too. Excuse me. But I'll send it to you. It's called The Remedy. Mm-hmm. And I said I'll expand upon it, and I'm just about there. And I think if you read that blog, I'll send you the link. It'll take about 10 minutes. And although I've progressed from there, what I've written in that blog, yes.
Can I just ask you to hold for just a minute? I have to make sure I don't run out of Skype credit, or we're going to be cut off here in a minute. Just hang on a second.
Okay.
I just
just give me 1 minute, because I just got to nip out and get some more water as well. Okay?
No worries. Okay.
Okay, I'm here.
Okay, and I've just recharged the account, so we're all good.
Sorry to cost you money already, Chris.
No, that's all right. No, it was right down. I was right down to the just the end of that last burst of fiat currency on the account. So.
So anyway, I wrote a blog which I'll send you, and I would ask you if you would just read it. That I believe is also accurate for the lawful process, which is basically the only notice that we need to send is written with absolute intent, if we can get into that position, a notice of forgiveness, and then to energetically cut ourselves from these entities and these systems as much as we possibly can.
Whoa, hold it right there, Jeremy. Notice of forgiveness.
Correct.
Did you just get what I got from that, Hope?
Did you see what I wrote in the box?
Just hang on a second.
Jeremy, that's brilliant.
Yeah, actually, that is... See, well, the actual paperwork process, one of the paperwork processes we're working on at the moment is, that Scott Bartle's working on, is a very simple process to deflect any letter that they send you. You don't even have to open it.
Yes.
You basically write back saying, I have a right to ask for further information about the addressee of this letter. Are you addressing corporate fiction or a human being, a living being?
Yes. See,
and
been there, done there, worn the T-shirt.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't want to cut you off there, but and I'm open, obviously, to being wrong, but you see, the moment you have to understand this, it's your energy thereafter.
Mm-hmm.
So any engagement with it is supporting that system.
Agreed.
Because it's vampirish.
Agreed. Absolutely. Now, what do you
Correct.
suggest? What are you suggesting then? That, I mean, if you send a letter of forgiveness, is that not engaging, or are you saying that's a disengaging?
What I am saying is, whether we like it or not, we are or have been already engaged, because we, as you know, we've been ensnared.
Oh, we're in it, yeah.
And deceived into it.
It's perfect.
Okay, I've just put on there my blog, which perhaps you might be able to read today.
Absolutely.
And it will be far more succinct, because I also mentioned to Hope yesterday, which I think blew her away, which is if you draw this down to energy, forget vitamin C, minerals, and they all have their place, of course, but everything has an energetic signature, okay? And it's an energetic universe created from thought and intelligent thought, and they are fully aware of that, okay? They absolutely understand this stuff. So what they've done is they've created an energetic chaos in our cells through the chemicals, through the beliefs, and all the rest of it. So as I was saying to Hope, if you want to take this to the pure level, which we need to as a matter of fact, but it's very simplistic, and it also then supports the local new economies as it is, it's crazy, if you think about it, to be eating a pineapple grown in the tropics, in the summer, in Toronto, in the middle of winter, at night, in an artificially heated building with the lights on.
Yes.
Because if you think about it energetically, it's completely challenging and out of sync at that level before you even get to MSG or preservatives or what have you.
Mm.
They understand all of this. And these systems are designed to engage us and get us angry and all the rest of it, which I've been there. Now, as I understand it, as above, so below. And it all begins with a thought. So if we are trying to bring peace, a harmonic unity energetically into ourselves by eating locally, of course, as best we can organically, but first of all, locally and seasonally, and to the best of our ability, allowing our bodies to have hydration, good food, and rest, and all those sort of things. And at the same time, first of all, that's going to bring us back far more into sync and resonance with nature, which we cannot escape. It's also going to open us up and have us resonate more ably resonate with the immense vibrations that are now hitting this planet, which they are aware of. Therefore, it seems to me logical that we must send them a notice of forgiveness, and when we write it with intent, and let it go, and sever our energetic connections, because as I understand things currently, what we focus on grows. So I moved away from that. Once I got to that point, I moved away from that, and I have concentrated completely, daily, on being being part of the solution and being creative. So I focus my energy on entirely, no longer on what these bastards are doing and what they've done, and I also talk in the past tense, it's over. They are the powers that were, because what I think I create. So they are over, it's past, it's finished. And I concentrate very much on where we are now. And here I am talking to you great people, with Hope offering us, the possibility of great funding to realize what I've been focusing on for several years. Of course, time is immaterial. But so that's kind of, and when you read my blog, which is several years, I think you'll really enjoy it, connected to where I am now and what we're about to do. Does that help?
Yes, it does. It helps. What's not helping is this person trying to phone me through the portal that the powers that were have to my brain called the telephone.
Yes.
Yeah. Now, the whole concept of a notice of forgiveness, that absolutely meshes with everything else that's going on around us. This is just me, because you've really dumped something into my head that I think needed to be there. It's a missing piece of what we've been doing for some of this other stuff. And I won't complicate this conversation by diving into that, except to say that the process of disengaging from the system has been revealing itself to us piece by piece, or for me especially. Correct. For the last year, because it's and you're right, it has to be absolutely done at an energetic level first and foremost to lead the way. And the sovereignty process that is going to be built into the donation part of the crowdsourcing campaign can absolutely have the element of a notice of forgiveness. It's the simplest damn thing in the world to put it in there.
It's not only the simplest, it is, the more I dwelled on it, the more powerful it is.
Because one of the problems with the system is that the guys who run it, when we are literally talking about men, because it's completely misogynistic,
correct,
are in fear of us.
Absolutely.
They are in fear. It's one of the reasons why they don't want to let go. And a notice of forgiveness, especially when when the count of those notices goes up into the millions and ultimately the billions, they will know that that it's time to let go, that there is no alternative for them, and they can no longer hold that energy themselves, that it's done. Absolutely brilliant. But let's continue on with your work, and I just wanted to throw in one thing that came up last night with regard to being energetically connected to the food that we're taking in and the water we're taking in. Everything we're taking in is part of the environment that we're actually vibrating in, so it's a match for us. Now, what came out, there was a couple of people at a dinner. One of is a raw foodie who is absolutely wanting to meet you, and the other is a light worker who is very widely read, and she was talking about descriptions of food growing that actually incorporated putting the seeds in your mouth to collect some of your DNA before you put them into the ground.
Yes, this actually stems, to the best of my knowledge, from the Ringing Cedar books. But
yes, I think that's
in the sense, yes, and I think that has great power. But it's not the DNA per se, although I'm sure it takes some on. It's the energetic message.
The signature.
Correct, that it will take on. I actually have a very strong theory that I haven't been able to test yet, which will be able to create unique homeopathic medicine for every man, woman, and child on this planet at just cents, just so cheaply, which is, in my view, if you know anything about homeopathic medicine, and I would like to work with some homeopaths who are far more knowledgeable, but in my view, if you were to take a drop, if you were unwell, and you were to take a drop of your first urine of the day and titrate it and dilute it the homeopathic way, which is 1 drop into a liter and then 1 drop into a liter, and you keep doing that, and then you take that drop and then put it on one of their sugar pills, you have a completely specific remedy for yourself, because homeopathy is like treats like. So in the urine is the energy of what's wrong with you, and therefore if you're diluting it down to a homeopathic level, and in each week or each month you redo it, because of course you're changing. Now I need a few homeopaths to sort of confirm my thinking on that, but if I'm correct on that, then it doesn't matter where you are in the planet, with a certain amount of minimal equipment, you can create unique and completely individually unique medication for yourself.
That would be a conversation I would love to listen to.
Yes. Now, I may be wrong, but I don't think so.
Yeah, there's a guy called Dr. John Waterman, who I've had a little bit of contact with, who is an ex-allopathic cancer specialist, actually, who walked away from allopathic medicine when he was in a Cancer Society board meeting, American Cancer Society, and he walked out after one of the other folk at the meeting told him that they weren't there to cure people, they were there to actually make money. And he became a homeopath, and he was actually not well the last time I spoke to him, which was about a year ago. But if you like, I'll see if he's still with us, because he has a perfect understanding of the system and particularly how medicine works, and he is a very experienced homeopathic doctor, and I think he'd be able to help, which would be spot on. So I'll see if I can track him down.
Pardon me, I'd love to. And this is one of the exciting things about, of course, it seems all of a sudden, but it's been 25 years in the coming, of suddenly being connected to all you wonderful people. And you see, this leads me on beautifully to the Naturally Better projects, which will be here in Barbados and in Yucatan, where we've got 50 hectares of Mayan land that hasn't been touched in 100 years to build upon. The core of the Naturally Better project, the Naturally Better Health Retreats, or whatever name we eventually come up with, because I don't want to use the word hospital, I want to come up with something new. But the core of it is a college and a conference center that quarterly brings in the best minds of ancient knowledge, origine knowledge, the Māori, the Origine, the Kinniquian, all of which I've worked with, as well as the most brilliant minds of our time who are awake and understand the energetics, and to continually evolve this knowledge and to make sure that it is simplified so that all can understand. Because in truth, I believe, just like the financial system, it is all being made incredibly complex, and it isn't. I believe it to be very simple. And that's what excites me the most, to bring this ever-increasing knowledge together and then have that accessible to all. And then, of course, we're ever-evolving the college curriculum to produce the next generation of what I call naturopaths, but the new doctors.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. Now, there's just one...
So no rigidity or stuck in our way or la.
No, well, there's not a profit basis to that. There's no commercial element to it at all, nor should there ever have been. It was turned into a business. It was turned into two things a long time ago. One was a business, and the other one was a means of damaging us rather than curing us. That's what happened to medicine.
Correct. And Yeah, go ahead.
There's one other person, I'm just thinking out loud here because I'll forget this as we move on. There's a gentleman who puts out information on the internet. I'm struggling to remember his name at the moment, but he talks about distilled water and, the chelating effects of distilled water, etc., which I'm sure you've studied. And I don't know whether you've heard of this particular theory, is that he has a theory which he anecdotally thinks he's actually, proven by his own experiments on himself, because he's allergic to bee stings, is that there is a function in the body whereby quite literally the cure for the onset of sudden toxicities in the blood is actually to be found in the urine. And I think this is the right sequence. Okay, if you put, for instance, if you have a, I forget exactly how he did this. Whether he put some liquid from the site of the injury under his tongue, or whether he actually took his own urine, a few minutes after the incident and put it under his tongue, then waiting a few minutes and urinating again, and the cure is actually in the urine at that point.
Something
like that going on with the body.
Yes. Now, but this is where I have been very, very, very clear that one of the things I have set out to do, which I've achieved, is to be completely accessible to all without putting people off. And the minute you start getting into urine therapy, which has enormous logic behind it once you start looking at it, nonetheless, you're going to turn off, at this point in time, a lot of people and who are going to write you off as quacks and all the rest of it, in spite of any science or anecdotes or testimonials. However, if you start saying you can produce a homeopathic remedy from the energetic signatures that are found in your own urine, and all they have to do is give a sample, which is what they do regularly with doctors, I believe we are in a much stronger position to use that incredible healing
modality
knowledge.
Look,
without putting people off, because that's been very key to me, because this really is a war of winning over the ignorant. Yes,
indeed. And look, I'm really fishing that situation I described out of sort of a very obscure corner of my memory, and I really think that the reason I liked it at the time, I mean, this guy is into full-on, reprocessing of urine, throwing it down a second time, running it through a second time kind of thing, and which puts a hell of a lot of people off. And I'm not suggesting that, that's the right way to go, but it made sense to me that the body should be able to produce the remedy for toxins that are suddenly inflicted on it. And I thought that mechanism, something about that mechanism rang true for me. And whether he's got the details and the process right, I don't know.
Yeah.
But it sounds to me like you've already considered that, and that is actually one of the things that will come out in the future. As in, it will emerge.
Absolutely.
In whatever form it is, in whatever form works, it will come out somewhere along the line.
Absolutely. And go ahead.
Jeremy, I wanted to make sure that Chris heard your explanation, as you explained to me last night, about the toxins going in and out of the cells and the way that it's supposed to work with the rhythms of the sun and the moon and the seasons, and a little bit of the time of the day according to Chinese medicine and what's going on with each organ. I just wanted to make sure that Chris got a chance to hear your explanation of it, because that's really one of the huge things that blew me away.
Yeah, that would be great.
For sure. This is something that we share every day with new clients and stuff, because it's fundamental. But there are natural rhythms that do exist. A 24-hour. There are other rhythms as well, but there's 24-hour rhythms, and there's lunar rhythms, 28-day rhythms. It's actually where the word menstrual, which is German for moon, came from. which is basically a 28-day cycle. And but during a 24, just very basically, and the stem of this is really the credit. I mean, this is all positive plagiarism. We're all borrowing and sharing people's work, before us, who have attempted to keep it alive. Thank goodness. So I said to Hope, even if I don't mention these people, I stand on the shoulders of giants and continue to. But and Barbara Wren, who is one of the most mentored me and is one of the most incredible human beings on this planet of healing. This is very much her core work. But fundamentally, during the day, there are things moving into the cell predominantly, and the cell is becoming toxic naturally from metabolism, and also nowadays unnaturally. And by the end of the day, your cells are toxic and you feel tired and you're supposed to lay down and the sun's gone down and the moon takes over. And the moon has a gravitational pull on sodium. Now, sodium, calcium, and the fats all travel together. So they've all been trapped in the cell during the day. And at night, if you've been eating during the day a natural diet full of fruits and vegetables, will have a lot of potassium and magnesium floating around in the fluids. Now, these displace sodium and calcium. So as they push in to the cell together, they push out the sodium, the calcium, the fat, and with it the toxins. Now, as many people know, certainly all fishermen or sea fishermen know, the moons affect the tides. So the moon, the high tides are literally the seawater, salt water, sodium, being pulled towards the moon. So through this 24-hour cycle, if everything is happening correctly, the sodium, calcium, fats will be not only pulled out of the cell by the moon, but the potassium and magnesium that you've been eating through the day will be pushing to the cell and displacing those as well. So you get this exchange, and you get the cell membrane literally recharging and the cell cleansing. And if this happens correctly, when you wake up in the morning, you feel literally refreshed and recharged and ready to go. Well, you speak to Hope, and that is not what she feels, because it isn't happening. Then when you get into the 28-day cycles, we get into more detail. But this is the fundamental thing that we start explaining to people that isn't happening. So therefore, all health and dis-ease is in motion. It's never stagnant. You're literally either becoming more toxic or less toxic at a physical and an energetic level. So when we asked someone, and we asked Hope, and I hope you don't mind me sharing, Hope, how do you feel out of 10? 10 being fantastic and 0, death's door. And Hope said 5. So we can say that 50% of Hope cells are toxic with a lot of sodium and calcium and fats still trapped in there, because all of life's processes happen in the cell. So only 50% of her is functioning, and that's what she feels like. Now, when you ask her, and what foods that you crave? It's salt, fat, and, cheese. Salt, fat, and calcium. Because her body is craving what it can't get hold of, because it's trapped away. You understand? So when we start to explain these things to people, and when they've got symptoms of sickness throughout their life, it's been their body, usually around full moons or equinoxes, which are March and September, which are the strongest detoxification forces of the year, they start to see that they never were sick, that their body has always been trying to cleanse and protect life. They just misunderstood it. And so even if they went to a natural doctor, quote unquote, if they didn't understand this process, they were very often suppressing the cleansing, upping their toxic loading. And if you up the toxic loading, it goes deeper and higher. So it goes from superficial stuff like aches and pains and skin problems and to more serious degenerative things. And as far as I'm concerned, the condition, and I quote this if it ever gets out there, known as cancer, because cancer doesn't exist in my view. No diseases exist. It's just a level of toxicity as Plato clearly stated. All cancer is, in my view, or the condition that's currently known as that, is extreme toxicity within the cell. And the body is either surrounding it off, and that's your kind of tumor, or it starts to divide to try and share the toxicity and buy more time. So we can never fight it and try and cut, burn, and poison it. We must understand it and help it through the natural rhythms. There's times to help it out, and there's times to help the body heal in those rhythms. But that's a fundamental thing that any man or woman or child can understand. And then when we start getting a little bit more specific, they'll really understand why they've had certain symptoms, like Hope will be up wide awake between 1 and 3 o'clock in the morning. There's a reason. And it's very simple, because between 1 and 3 o'clock in the morning in Chinese medicine, that's the time the liver's cleansing. So we know that Hope's liver is struggling. Now, also in Chinese medicine, each organ has an emotion. Well, the liver is anger. Well, Hope's got a lot to be angry about. We've all got a lot to be angry about once you understand what's been going on this planet. So you start to understand all the connection. So when I've taken people, let's take an extreme, that are real bastards, real violent, horrid, because I haven't even talked to you about prisons and how I see prisons of the future for another day. But I've taken real vicious, nasty bastards that have harmed people, and they've put themselves in a box of what they now are. But really, they were highly poisoned people, energetically poisoned as well. When we start to explain this to them, and I did it with a chap in New Zealand who was a nasty bastard, he suddenly saw that he isn't a nasty bastard. He isn't vicious and all these things he now believes, and what you believe you become. He saw that he was toxic and that his liver had been struggling, and that's where all his anger came from. So we did all this work with him, and although we only got about 70% of where I wanted to get to him, when we finished with him, his exact words were to me, and these were his exact words, "You've turned me into a fucking teddy bear." And I said, well, but people love teddy bears, you know? But the point is this: because of that simple explanation of the in and out and the toxic loading building up at that level of understanding, he could clearly see that he was not the box he'd put himself in and the box that everyone else saw him in. And he had a real opportunity now to change by just starting to change daily and understand these rhythms. And so he did. Mm. That's powerful.
That is so logical, it's almost painful to listen to, frankly, because it's so, it's sort of one of the oh my God reactions. It really is that simple.
Yes.
Jeremy, I have to ask one more question, because there was something else that you said that was so powerful to me as well. When you're talking about people who go through detoxes, but they don't get their gut and their liver ready to handle the detoxing, can you explain a little bit about what happens there?
Absolutely. I mean, look, as I said, natural medicine is the new black. You know, it's an industry again. And although I'm not saying that there aren't very good people with good intentions, but they haven't deliberately they haven't got the whole picture. So they're often helping people without realizing that actually they're not doing much good, and sometimes actually even suppressing it. So the word detox is bounded around, I think you'll agree, all over the place now. But you simply just can't detox in a weekend or a week and so on. And so a lot of times people, it's relatively easy to shift stuff out of the cells. The question is, are you actually getting it out of the body? So very, very often it's just floating around, causing all kinds of havoc and making people feel like shit, and then dumping somewhere else. Now, you know when people are really detoxing, and this is something that really is a continual process of understanding that parts of the moon you're detoxing and parts of the moon you're healing. So once you understand these rhythms, you start to work with them without any real effort or consciousness once you've got it, because it's so simple. But So what I'm saying, so I lost my point there. You know, it really is. That's right. I remember where I was now. Thank you. If you're actually doing this correct, once you've started to cleanse, you will feel better at every level of your being after you've finished. But it really, the current state that we're in until the event and the light really hits here, this is a continual thing that we have to be conscious of day to day, without, as I said, becoming tree-hugging, green gloop drinking, kaftan-wearing, flower power people, unless that's what you want to be. So I've set out to reach the people who are most unlikely to ever take this on, and I'm doing that. So I'm reaching the corporate, the rich, down to the ill-educated poor man, the whole range, to introduce them to this, to start to make them changes. And without exception, they begin to change. And then when the cells open up and start to cleanse over through these rhythms, they start to become more conscious beings. And you should hear the conversations we have in this room. It's very, very, very encouraging how many people are becoming more and more aware of at least what's going on, but more importantly, what their part in it is.
Yeah, look, Jeremy, the theme of simplicity is key to actually engaging everybody.
Correct.
And it has.
And I'm a simple man, you see.
Well, it has.
I've had to force myself through complex work to extract what I call the diamonds.
The nuggets.
Because I just can't retain. I meet these people who are brilliant specialists in what they do. I just have had to accept I can't retain that, and I'm not meant to retain that. I'm meant to get the nuggets and formulate it into a philosophy and a language that all men, meaning mankind men, can understand.
The research community in and around medicine and science is filled with people whose genuine intent is to get the truth, to get to the explanations.
I believe it.
But they've been trained to look in the wrong places.
Exactly right.
And the wrong ways. And one of the things that I think will happen in years to come is that those people will repurpose themselves, taking on the additional information from people like yourself, Jeremy, and that the whole of medicine will just walk in a different direction and walk away from what it was doing.
I absolutely believe it. I just wrote an article that someday we'll publish at the right time. I have an absolute belief. As I said to Hope, and forgive my language, Chris, but we're going to charm these fuckers into the light. I absolutely believe that there is a predominance of people in this industry that's doing so harm that don't, A, realize it, and B, if they do, they don't feel able to come out of it. We have to, and I hope I'm going to be part of that, show them the way so that they can bring their brilliance, which is far, far superior to mine, I'm quite certain. And that's my job, it's to bring and help these people to realize their true brilliance, and I can just revel in their glory later on.
Yeah, well, we've been talking about between the group that Hope and I are working with. We're kind of we know that the brilliant people will come out at some point. They're just asleep at the moment, and the amount of energy that will unleash in the most positive of ways is going to be absolutely stunning. Because the people, and I had this conversation with some free energy guys. They were talking about the fact that free energy information has been distributed to universities before, and I pointed out to them that's the wrong place. It shouldn't go into the university structures because they are political. Okay.
Correct.
And what you have to reach is the engineers. The engineers are the ones who really want to make it work. The guys in the research labs doing that work, they're the ones that really want to get to the bottom of the truth, that really want to make it work. There's public servants inside every government on this planet who really want to make it work for the people. And so you mentioned before the event, or probably a series of events that will trigger this whole shift that absolutely is coming. And what will pop out are all those brilliant people all scattered throughout the middles of these organisations that aren't part of the political crap that exists at professor level and, senior public servant level. That's where the corruption is.
Of course.
That creative burst that's going to come out from everywhere is going to be absolutely amazing. Completely amazing. And, of course, medicine will be right in the middle of it. And, and the people who are showing the way are going to be people who weren't in those structures. Okay, so the engineers that weren't necessarily part of the engineering mainstream will suddenly come to the fore, and the same with yourself in medicine. And I think every endeavour right across the planet, we're going to see the same pattern, because those people inside the systems are the one whose energetic intent is true. Everything above them is corrupted. But there's going to be a burst of creativity that's just going to absolutely floor everybody. And
I think it's already happening. Of course.
It's actually the fuse has been lit, and everything's in motion.
I have another question I'd like to ask. Jeremy, would you be able to share any testimonies from some of the people that you've helped to heal themselves, or anything along those lines? Or perhaps is Natalie around?
Well, now I'm on the mobile phone. No, she's out feeding the children and what have you. But Natalie is a unique woman and a unique case. She actually had terminal breast cancer and submitted herself to the full wrath of medicine, and at the end of that was told that she was basically to get her
affairs together because she was going to die.
Together. Yeah. Correct. But somewhere along there, she heard about drinking water and started to drink 4 liters of water a day, which is, nature's or God's medicine, whichever you want to, on this planet, but definitely distilled or reverse osmosis water, in my humble view. And drank with intention what you want the water to do. But anyway, she started to drink lots and lots of water and started to feel better, and then started to do research and started to eat more raw food, the classics that a lot of people are aware of. And then I met her and got hold of her, and we've completed the rest, and I explained to her what I've explained to you tonight, the rhythms, and that was incredibly powerful for her. And she understood, and I explained her case history, so she understood how she got there. It's very important that we understand how we got there and the numerous signs and warnings that she had beforehand. So it was very powerful to understand what she'd done, was experienced previously, were all these warning signs, and she went to the doctor and got given medication and suppressed and so on and so forth. We've taken her through many cleanses, and she fully understands at that level that you're not sick, you're toxic, because she's seen and felt what's come out of her. But I can't speak for. I mean, I'm very fortunate that my clients speak incredibly. They love me. They to speak freely. They love me. They know we genuinely care, and you've seen some of what they've written about me. But we had someone recently who's very socially high here, which is I see also as a unique change in my life, because I'm reaching the while we live in this world currently, there is still societal hierarchies, and I'm helping some of the highest people in society in this country. And her exact words were to me the other day, and she's been unwell for quite a few years, to say the least, was you've completely changed my consciousness of how health and disease is and this world. Now, I take that as a great compliment, and I know that she's going to continue her journey now into. She happens to be a designer also here to the kind of rich and famous. But we hear these kind of. I mean, Natalie will tell you, I don't actually talk like this very often because I'm not comfortable with it. But we hear compliments day in, day out about the changes we've caused on people's lives. But it must be given right back to the people, because I shared information and perhaps higher things with my skills and gifts that I believe I have, but they did it, and it's really important that message is kept there. I haven't healed anyone. They did. They healed themselves. Yeah. And the very nature of that term means to become a more conscious being. And as you become a more conscious being, you start to remember, in many cases, who you are and why you're here. And then they start to change all aspects of their lives. And I maintain, at this point in our development, dis-ease, no matter how serious it's been labeled, is a blessing in disguise.
The formula, if I can use the word formula for your work,
mm-hmm.
could you give a degree of importance to the information you give them about consciousness? And
can you repeat that, Chris, because it broke up a little bit?
Yeah, you're giving them information, for instance, about cellular function and
mm-hmm.
the cycles, but you're also giving them
mm-hmm.
information about the fact that they're energetic beings and that their consciousness actually affects their physical being as well. Is it possible to say that one is more important in the process than the other, and if so, which one, or are they really equally paramount?
It's a very good question, but every individual that arrives here, I have to take them at where they're at.
Mm-hmm.
So, for example, if you take someone who's unwell, but is absolutely got no consciousness of the world's problems or energy, and possibly is very religious, and I don't want to offend anyone who may listen to this, but religion, not faith. Religion is the single most brain-controlled problem that we have left on this planet, in my humble view. And anyone who's been in religion, and they continue to tell me this, is aware of the immense hypocrisy, not the faith, not the good people trying to live good things. So what we begin with, so imagine someone's coming to me and they've been diagnosed with a label or something. My first goal is always to remove fear and for them to understand that they're not sick, they're toxic. And so that's usually where I'm beginning, and to understand the very simple 24-hour rhythm of the cell. And as we go, and the hydration element in that. And we do this so simplistically that no matter who they are, they get it every time. They get it. So they leave here understanding more about how they got to where they are. So if they walk in with a label, very often they can't spell, let alone pronounce. They leave within an hour understanding far more about really the truth of where they're at. And they can completely see how if they start to make these changes and work with these rhythms, that they can get themselves better. Then we take them through usually 12 weeks if they're chronic, and they go through this day-to-day and these lunar rhythms, and they normally have their first cleanse, and then it becomes really real. Because I tell them, it's very powerful, don't believe a word I'm telling you. I could be lying, I could be wrong, I could be trying to sell you something. Do not believe a word, but certainly listen and go and try what I'm suggesting, because if it's the truth, things will start to change, and this is likely what's to happen. So, of course, it usually happens.
So, in fact,
and that's incredibly powerful.
In effect, you're not giving them, you're giving them information and empowerment
through understanding.
Through understanding, and adding to that, I presume that some of the body cleanses that your patients actually go through are, herbs or, substances supplied by yourself to act as the body cleansers. But that's all you're doing.
Correct, but
so your process is entirely one of facilitation and not treatment.
Absolutely. Although, I always include physical treatments from my osteopathic, chiropractic bodywork studies, so that we can physically release blockages, stagnation, that sort of thing. So we can speed it up at that physical level. Mm-hmm. But the predominant and the key thing is they must take responsibility through understanding, and that releases the fear, and then we can take them through. And it's an incredibly powerful process, because not only do they usually become better than before they were unwell, but they completely change and they go out and spread the word, because it's the truth. It's simple. And it removes, I mean, you know, when anyone is diagnosed with cancer, for example, what they hear is death. They don't hear cancer, they hear death.
Yeah.
And it's done deliberately. It's pure fear. Now, I do not believe that there is any such thing as incurable. I believe incurable means incurable.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And once you start to explain the simplicity of what I've shared, some of it tonight, it doesn't matter what they've got, they get it. Look, I had a boy brought to me with an inoperable brain tumor who was 12 years old and couldn't stand on one leg, couldn't balance. And I won't go into too many details, but because, you know, really he ruled the roost, and there was some tough love that really needed to change. But nonetheless, when we took his case history, there were a few smoking guns, but the main one, he was drinking Diet Coke since he was 8. It's the first thing he'd drink in the morning, which is full of aspartame, which we know at a physical level, but this turns to formaldehyde and worse. And gets trapped in the brain, and the brain can't get rid of it, so it just encapsulates it, and that's what the tumor is. Now, he'd been to all the top people in Canada and America and all the rest of it, and tens of thousands of dollars, and I explained this simple thing to his almost disbelieving parents, and started them on nothing but water and no more Diet Coke, and the boy would only eat he wouldn't eat any fruits or vegetables, right? And so I had to put a few key supplements in there, but mostly the water and the rice that he was very much eating. So I was really concentrating on getting opening his routes of elimination. And I told him that he was very likely to stop producing a lot of mucus, which is that sodium, calcium, fats trapped in the cell. And he was very bloated. Within days, his nose turned on like a tap as this mucus started to pour out. Now, bearing in mind, this boy, I'm not doing anything very clever on a few adjustments and getting him to drink water and eating rice, and he won't do very much more than that. But his body, it's enough that his body started, because it's ultimately full of wisdom, started to release this. Within 12 weeks, I videoed him riding a scooter down my drive.
Yeah.
Now, you understand, if you can't stand on one leg to riding a scooter, there's been dramatic change.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
To what extent?
And, of course, they then went to Canada and rescanned him, and they confirmed what we already knew, which it was starting to shrink.
And how long ago was that?
That was the beginning of this year.
And how is that child now?
To the best of my knowledge, that child is probably gone backwards, because this is why I don't want to say too much, because it's a small country, if anyone hears this.
Yes.
Because his parents have slipped backwards.
Yes. Yep.
But that's not up to me.
Mm-hmm. No.
If you understand what I'm saying.
No, well, see, the empowerment actually is in large part taking responsibility from themselves. And one of the questions I wanted to ask was, this is the empowerment is actually becoming sovereign. You know, if they truly become self-empowered, they start to become sovereign beings. Do you ever talk about that aspect with them, the fact that we've had our sovereignty completely trashed, frankly? At every level, we have no understanding of what we actually are.
Absolutely, and this is what caused me a lot of shit in New Zealand. But you see, the naturally better health retreats that we are going to realize and we are going to replicate around the world, the key fundamental thing, as I am now absolutely aware, is there is a truth vibration. And because I say dis-ease is a blessing in disguise, the blessing in disguise is that we are so far removed from the truth that we must incorporate it into any healing methodology. So there's no point in introducing people to the cell rhythms and at the physical toxic level if we can't ultimately take them to understand that there are no countries, there are no borders. You know, it's all rubbish. There's just land and sea. Yes, you can feel connected to a group. You can say, I was born on the land known as England, or I am from the English, whatever. But the truth is, you're a man on this beautiful planet. And there is only water. There are no days. What day is it today? It's Tuesday, is it? No, it's not. It's just today. And yet, as I've clearly explained previously, you know, Monday to some people and Saturday are so emotionally and mentally different. It's an illusion. So in my humble view, the whole truth and nothing but the truth has to eventually be the whole treatment plan, so that we get back into resonating in the now and only in the truth, and ever open to evolve into the greater truths which are being exponentially revealed to us.
Jeremy, can you just talk just a little bit about the calendar and how there's 13 months in a year and how that has helped to kind of mess us up?
Well, everything's been done by design, of course. And we have this information, and again, the lectures and the college and all the rest of it will, and this will all be broadcastable to be shared, and we can back it all up. But when we get to the level that we can talk to people individually or in groups and show them the plot, if you like, that's being levied against them, excuse me 1 minute, that's all well and good. But it's essential. Now, the powers that were, and this is fundamental, absolutely know what I'm talking about. Because everything is 180 degrees arse about face. It can't be by chance. They understand these rhythms absolutely. And so the wisdom of Pope Gregory, I believe it was, deliberately changed it to a 12-month calendar called the Gregorian calendar to deliberately take us out of sync with the 13 lunar months that we experienced. And the minute you move away at that level, you begin to create stress in the water, in the body. And that's how it's progressed to today. Because the minute you create that stress, you create dehydration, which means water in the wrong place. And if water's in the wrong place, the sodium, the calcium, the fats are in the wrong place proportionately. Your charge then becomes out of sync, and you become ever more out of sync with nature and with the vibration. So more stress. So then you start reaching for stimulants. Now, stimulants create more stress because it's artificial and usually create more toxicity. So if you follow it through to modern day, what we have is incredibly dense, dehydrated, toxic bunnies at cell level that are so cut off from the higher vibrations that they need extremes to feel anything. They need to be fucking everybody, and I mean fucking as opposed to making love. Anyone, everyone, and everything. It needs to be ever more exciting and extreme. The music needs to be, fuck, your ears are there to let the music out rather than hear it. Everything is far more vibrationally louder and chaotic and noisy to feel things.
Yeah.
So when and they know this, and so and that makes you denser and in the lower dimensions where they want you. So when you start to open up those cells again, introduce people to these rhythms, open up the cells, and I've had good fortune of working with many musicians and become far more creative. And you start to get back into sync and release that stress and resonate more with nature without becoming a green glute tree-hugging, kaftan-wearing, flower power, unless you want to, human being. You are able, in the format that your life is currently, to completely begin to evolve into what you are supposed to be, because ultimately the greatest stress to any human being is not being themselves, not living in their truth. And this process allows them to evolve back or into who they are.
Beautiful. Absolutely fan. I love that.
Thank you.
I have a couple of things I wanted to ask you. There's a massive amount of really obvious shenanigans going on with things that are obviously toxins, but are foisted upon us despite them being proven poisons. Cigarettes, for instance, alcohol, sugar, even my beloved coffee. Okay, I know that has an effect on the adrenals that's probably not good. Aspartame, these are really obvious poisons.
Yes.
Is there any one particular of those types of poisons that really stands out to you as being something that could be removed that would have a dramatic effect? Not necessarily the ones I mentioned, because there's probably ones I don't even know about.
Okay, but before I answer that question, I'd rather approach it this way, if that's okay. Let's not think of things as good or bad. Let's remove that, because that's a very Catholic Church programmed guilt there in itself that we've been programmed. Let's think of it differently. Let's think of everything that we introduce into our body, including thoughts, but let's just keep to physical, is a challenge on the body. And so the question is how challenging is it to the body for it to do something with it? Because once it's in your mouth or through your skin or whatever, your body has no option but to do something with it. Okay? So if we take that a step further, we're supposed to be 70% water, which interestingly enough, and not by chance, is the same proportion as the earth, as are the minerals to water, because everything mirrors everything. So if the water is the universal, and I believe it's actually the element of life, because there is no life without water, therefore water is life itself in the essence that we understand it currently. Water is the universal receiver, and it's the universal receiver of the message, and the message is always vibrational in nature. Are you with me so far?
Yep, absolutely.
Okay. So what you're really asking me is, what message are you putting into our water, which will then create a vibration, which will then create your reality and our reality, is the most challenging. And I would have to say probably all of them. But I believe we can absolutely stop the MSG because it's in all processed foods. Therefore, we can pretty much stay away from processed foods other than occasionally. See, I'm a realist, Chris. You know, if I want to go and eat some crap because I'm whatever, I will. But 85% of the time, I'm living pretty much what we preach, right? Because it's just, this world is so challenging, and this is very key to me. The reason why we've been so successful in the sense of helping people is they understand we're realistic. And if we can just tip people 50, 55, 60% the right way, we will alter the dynamics and people will cleanse and will evolve. Okay? Of course we'd like to go 100%, and that's what Naturally Better projects are about, and to promote that. But we definitely can almost entirely remove the MSG, which is probably one of the single most problems coming into my clinic. Numerous symptoms. I could give you many, many stories. The next one, all processed food, basically. We have to get back to falling in love with cooking, and I love food. I'm a chef trapped in a naturopath's body, to be honest. I love food. I love the social element. It's thousands of years old, embedded with culture. I know nothing better than good food to bring people together and resolve things. So we need to fall back in love with food, and of course that then ties into people, local farmers and growing and really those connections. Smoking, and Hope, you might want to mute now, but smoking, there's been squillions of dollars invested into putting into the subliminal mind that it is a stress-releasing thing. Total bullshit. And that cellular rhythm that I shared with you and Hope is a perfect case of a corporation understanding how this process works, which is why there's 20 cigarettes in a packet. Because if we were to inject the nicotine of one cigarette, let alone the other 600 ingredients, into your body directly, it would kill you instantly. And yet people clearly aren't dropping dead. The body is so incredible at removing toxins from the blood and storing it in the cells that it protects you. And then after about 20 minutes or so, it will start drip feeding it back into the blood with the hope of breaking it down in the liver and then releasing it and excreting it. Once it's in the blood, a fifth of that blood goes to the brain, and you start to feel irritable and uncomfortable. The minute you light your next cigarette, which is usually about 40 minutes after that, it stops that detoxification process. The symptoms of irritability and uncomfortable stop, and you feel better, and you make the emotional connection that it was the cigarette. Couldn't be further from the truth. The corporations and the tobacco industry entirely understand that knowledge. So it's the same thing over and over again, except for it is how challenging. Now, once we've done 12 weeks of work with people, and usually along before that, and it'll be no different with young and soon-to-be vibrant Hope, is that it's no longer intellectual. You will start putting things into your body despite your better wishes, and it will be so abhorrent to you, or it will make you feel so crap instantly that you will find it very challenging to ignore it. So it's no longer intellectual or what I should or shouldn't. It is just listening, feeling, and making choices based upon that. I had someone today that I've been helping for 6 weeks in Vienna via Skype, who she doesn't want to use the word alcoholic, but basically she couldn't stop drinking and it was destroying her. And as of today, if she puts a glass of, this is in her case, if she drinks a glass of wine, she immediately vomits now. So now that's quite an extreme, but her, and I'm not, I think wine and things like this have their place. I enjoy wine, but in her case, it was a problem. And since we've done the work, her body is so much more alive that it rejects it because it's had far too much of it. So she can't ignore that. I haven't sold her anything. I haven't convinced her anything. It's clear as day.
She's done it herself. It's her process.
Yeah, so it's how challenging it is to the body and to the water.
There's a proposition put forward by light workers that we're moving to a more energetic way of living, and understanding energy and working with energy and speaking and actually considering everything from that energetic level, which I certainly accept we're going in that direction for sure. And one of the things that one of the propositions that's been put to me is that with intention, when you're taking food in with intention, you can actually change and ensure that what you're pulling in, what you're eating, is actually for your greatest good. Now, do you feel that in the future that actually, so despite whatever it is, you might have, for instance, a chocolate bar full of aspartame. One or two of them have put to me that you should be able to eat that with the right intention, and the aspartame won't harm you. Now, do you feel that is actually a physical possibility, or are we reaching too far in the future with that question?
Can you hear me?
I can hear you now. Yep.
Okay. Yes, it's entirely possible, I think, if you're a highly evolved vibrational level yourself. But you have to, pardon me, and it's absolutely correct. And if you read my blog on the remedy, you'll actually see that I'm answering a lot of that question there. However, you have to view it again from what I was just beginning with, how challenging it is. It's equivalent to you trying to play some beautiful, melodic, soothing tones in the middle of 10 heavy metal concerts played at full blast. You just won't hear your tones. So when you compare aspartame to your intentions, it's just overwhelmingly, vibrationally, chaotically powerful. So it is better to avoid it.
Yeah.
However...
Yep.
Go ahead.
No. I just want to make a comment, but I need you to finish what you're talking about.
However, it is not, and this is why I'm a realist, it is just not possible yet for us to be eating the vibrationally, let me think of the right word, the vibration quality food that we will have in the future. So it is still, because water's in everything, the intent of how that food was produced is carrying in the water. So you can start to bless it or whatever you want and put your intentions in it. And the wonderful work of Masaru Emoto, who I'm sure you're aware of, becomes very prominent there. Because when you put your intentions into your food, you are changing it. They've done it with water, and they've found that the surface tension changes in the water when you bless it. So everything that we do in the now with greater consciousness is energetically going to bring us back into harmony, and everything is accumulative while we're in this transition. I have no doubt we'll reach a time again where the people who grew our food loved the soil, loved what they did, only produced it because it's what they love, and we will be eating their love and consuming their light. But right now, we know that's not quite the case. But yes, we can affect it, and every little thing we do in the now has an accumulative vibratory effect.
I'm sitting here just grinning away, Jeremy, just listening to you speak. It's really fantastic. It's absolutely fantastic. And I just wanted to, as a comment, you spoke before of a vibration of truth.
Yes.
And everything you're saying to me has that. And
thank you.
If you like, the proof of it is this. I asked you a really basic question about, in a very kind of, let's call it, low consciousness way. Are alcohol, cigarettes, coffee, sugar, and aspartame bad for you? And is there anything worse? Okay. What you did was you changed my consciousness to answer the question. You lifted it up to.
Thank you.
To this is absolutely Einsteinian. I think he was the originator of the phrase. You can't solve a problem in the consciousness using the consciousness with which it was created. You have to raise your consciousness.
Correct.
And
that is what I've set out to do.
Yeah. Well, you've done it for me. Thank you. That was really, really excellent.
Would you believe I was nervous talking with you because I thought you'd think I was a fuckwit?
Oh, good God. What's happening for me, especially in the last period of time, is that there's a whole lot of final dots. Well, I don't call them final. A whole lot of what appear to be near final dots connecting and things meshing.
Yes.
And there's a lot of people out there that have part of the answer and know they're onto something and enthusiastically put it forward, and it's partially effective, but it doesn't answer all the questions. But what you've done is you've managed to elevate the whole thing to a different level, to the energetic level, and to the, let's just call it, to the natural level.
I hope you agree with your feet firmly on the ground and at a realist level. And I'm sorry to know, but can I leave you with one more analogy that I think will really help too?
Mm-hmm.
If you imagine our bodies currently as a pond that's very dirty and very thick very thick and dense, and you take a little pebble and you throw it into the middle, and little tiny rings of ripples pitter out and disappear very quickly. That's our ability to manifest currently. And many, many people I've met, which is what I set out to change, have got frustrated with their inability to manifest peace and abundance or in their own level. let alone global. Now, if you clean that pond, and if you dilute that pond, and then take that same pebble and throw it in the middle, the ripples will be larger, they will extend out further, and they will last longer. And your manifestation will exponentially increase at that level. That's what this is.
Do you use that? Do you paint that picture for your patients, as you just
frequently? If we get them to that level, which we frequently do, some we just get to a level and they're happy to go away and they're feeling better and they go and tell everyone about us, but they've changed their life. Mm-hmm. But a large proportion, and you see that the naturally better retreats will be entirely this, will be to get them to that level, to understand the nature of the universe, that we create what we think. And that by understanding these simple analogies, you can become an amplified manifester of what you want, as long as you obey the laws of the universe, which is first create no harm.
Perfect. I mean, the really interesting thing that you're doing is actually helping people to reach that state of understanding. And the word sovereign is so convoluted with baggage, but it's hard. I'd appreciate it if you have another word to describe that state of being where you actually are taking full responsibility and do have a very high level of understanding. I'd love to hear it, but it moves people to a place of sovereignty with all the right things, by empowerment, by information.
Yes, well, look, I can give you some answer to that, but we could talk probably all month, frankly. But we have to understand that if we understand this process in the cell that I've explained, that this process started many, many, many years ago and generations ago, because they knew this time was coming, that we were entering into a photon belt where more light was going to hit this planet. And they did not want us to be able to resonate with it and create the new reality. So you have to understand that if we were never supposed to be here in the first instant, once we again cleanse ourselves, and at this point we must do just the best we can in the reality that we have, and then accumulatively manifest and accelerate the future. But once we, get back to how we ought to always have been, totally in sync with the rhythms, we would naturally be peaceful. Why wouldn't we be any other way? Because we would understand at a sentient and feeling level that we can manifest everything we want. We would be able to feel the vibrations of the other creatures and the trees and the plants and so on and so forth. So we would be once again energetically and emotionally connected with these beings. So sovereign wouldn't be even an issue. We would understand because we would remember, because we would feel the connection with our fellow man. Now, right now, it is still easy to go, well, he's a bastard, but they're all victims of the same cellular vibrational density. So the solution for me has always been to correct that, get us back into sync with these things, to remember the power of these things that have always been there, which is why I say disease is a blessing. It's there to show you are out of sync with nature. And only when you begin to get back into sync with nature and feel it, and again, I don't mean unless you want to become to that extreme, but when you can feel it and still have a quote-unquote normal life, pretty much, do you become who you are supposed to be? And only you can know that because you feel it. You know you're on your path. You know, because people come, everything starts to click. Then it's not a question of sovereignty. You become a peaceful, abundant human being experiencing the miracle of life and co-creating.
That's the one of the biggest tricks the system has pulled on us, believing that abundance was outside us, and that we are the abundance. It's actually inside us.
Yes, and you see, Chris, these words have been spoken many times, but I have come across many, many people who just don't or aren't able to manifest or getting frustrated. And until, in my view, until they understand that connection from the physical up, they just won't be able to do it. Now, see, you got to understand, there's a lot of people that don't want to go off and meditate, or can't meditate, or they think to become conscious and manifesting beings and co-creators means to become one of these groups or kind of people that they don't want to. That's not what it means at all. It literally means to live once again in your truth. And when I say there's a truth vibration, it simply is what it says. When you're in the truth vibration, you feel it. Everything works. See, I live in the Caribbean currently, and I was trying to grow some tomatoes a couple of years ago or a year ago, and we have monkeys, spider monkeys here, and they were coming over the fence and stealing my tomatoes. And one of my clients said, you know, doesn't it annoy you that they're eating your tomatoes? And I said, well, yes, it does actually, because I kind of not been very good at growing things, and I wish I was more able and all the rest of it. But the thing is, the monkeys know they're not mine. The monkeys know. I mean, it's very simplistic, but they know that fence isn't a fence. Mm-hmm. And when you go into the jungles, there isn't cancer in gorillas. There isn't diabetic giraffes. There isn't schizophrenic chimpanzees. It just doesn't exist for the most part until man gets in there. They are still resonating with that truth vibration. And they also understand abundance. And it was Wayne Dyer. See, these monkeys take a bite of the tomato and throw it away. But Wayne Dyer said something very profound to me some years ago, not that he spoke to me directly, which has really helped me, and which has proved to me that the universe is abundant, where he said, you can count the number of seeds in an apple, but you can't count the number of apple trees in a seed.
Yeah.
Now, when you stop and think about that for just a second, you know, one seed produces one tree, which produces hundreds of apples, which produces hundreds of seeds. It's incredible. That's a truth vibration.
There's a particular view of the world that I put forward that that somewhat matches your entire approach by describing the system that we live in, which is entirely one of division, from the very top of the system and every corner of the planet, right down to the cells in our body. What they've done is divide us off from the truth of all of these things. They divide us into nations, and they divide us off from the cells in our body just by ignorance. And what I'm really, really, really enjoying about everything you're saying is the fact that it's healing that division all the way down the line. All of your work is all about healing that division, is actually bringing us back to the truth.
Correct, because it's energetically attached. But you need to understand, as I understand it, that they know this. And what they've done is gone out to, from the cell level, cut us off with dehydration and stress, starting with something like the calendar. Mm-hmm. When the changes to the calendar, because they understood that when you begin that process, understanding that what the water in your cell resonates as will create the future. They understood the timelines of where we are now, which is why they started so long ago. They understood that when you start stressing the cell and changing the vibration in your water, the outside will also change. Mm-hmm. Because you create what you create inside, you create outside. So for me, the solution is not removing Bush or the cabal at that sense, although we must keep that awareness. It is change your cells back into rhythm with nature, and everything must change.
Agreed, actually. That's a complete... the other thing that we've been saying, which I can see now is again, not quite complete, is that the way to build the new is to build it from the ground up, from community level upwards, but it really has to start internally.
Absolutely.
Amazing. Every time I have one of these kinds of conversations, we're gradually drilling down to the real essence of everything, and this has been absolutely fantastic, Jeremy. Really, really appreciate your thought on everything you've spoken. Really amazing.
Thank you, Chris. You're more than welcome.
Great.
It's only been 25 fucking incredibly hard years to get here.
Well, now let's get that in perspective. This civilization has been here how long? What you've done is actually an incredible amount of work in a really short period of time that's going to have a huge impact. And how much public speaking have you done to this point in your life? And
not much. I began to do some in New Zealand, but I was so heavily jumped on. And this is why I know the time and the vibration has changed, because I'm being drawn out again. I've been preparing myself to be ready for this, knowing that this time would come. So to date, not much. And you've got to remember that I was personally, and several times, completely crushed.
Yeah, it's happened across the planet to individuals like yourself who are really, absolutely intent on seeking the truth. And from a higher level of consciousness. So, the fact that you got on their radar and they really took action against you is no surprise. It's always, the flak's always heaviest around the target, and you're obviously right in it. Yeah. Now, moving to Barbados provided you with a better environment?
Well, so far, yes. We have some challenges, but so far, it's a wwonderful place. Natalie... actually is Trinidadian, even though she lived in Canada. So we were originally, I wanted to be in the having been in the tropics, I really knew I wanted to be in more light, physically, and warmth. So, and my parents are getting older, so I was in the UK, and I wanted to be closer to them. So when I already wanted to go to the Caribbean, and then when I met Natalie, and Natalie wanted to go back to the Caribbean, it all kind of was a universal tick. And we went to Trinidad, but Trinidad is very much under, I think, extremely vibrational forces still. A lot of problems in Trinidad. And I didn't like it. I love the climate, and I love the people, even though there's a palpable sense of fear and a lot of violence that's going on there. But I found Barbados, and it's an amazing vibration here, and the people are, by and large, incredibly alive, particularly the Black Bayesian people. They're very, very wonderful human beings, and although they're very religious, they're very open. They're a wonderful example of what can be, I think. So anyway, here we're blessed in many ways. From being homeless 4 years ago, we've managed to find a place, even though we're still living, day to day, week to week, literally overlooking the Caribbean Sea, and everyone who comes here tells us what we already know. We've had all kinds of people here tell us we're surrounded by angels and highlight. We know it, we can feel it, but it's a very high vibration here.
Yes, I've met some people who came from there, and yeah, they are a bit different. They are a particularly happy group of people.
Yes, they are.
And that's obviously where it's coming from. Next steps, Jeremy, for you?
Just a second. My lovely Natalie's asked me if I want dinner. That's right, they all want dinner. Yes, I do. I'm starving.
Yeah, well, next step sounds like dinner, actually.
See, she's written me a note and nodding, shaking her head. No, don't tell them. No, I'm starving. Okay.
No, that's good. No, it's actually...
What was your question, Chris?
Next steps for you, apart from dinner, in the bigger picture. Obviously, there's resources needed to set up, clinics in different places. That's the next step for you, just to expand out and get the message out.
Well, the immediate steps are, because we had everything taken away from us. Thank you, Dave. We really trying to get some funding to get some equipment here.
Yes.
But just some basic equipment. It's about $28,000 worth of equipment, but it's basic for me. I'm doing incredible work with literally almost no equipment, because when I say we were homeless and lost everything, I'm not exaggerating. We literally started from nothing, and everything. Even though we're in a very nice house and people make assumptions, we haven't got excess yet to purchase anything. So it's really just the skin of our nose still that we get by each week, etc. Although that, of course, is growing, because our name is becoming very quickly known in all circles around the island, which is also creating a few troubles. But I'm pretty sure we're safer at the moment. Anyway, but the real thing is which I'm very proud to know Hope and Valerie, and to be working with them, is to see these first two health retreats, one in Mexico and one here, realized, and the conferences set up quarterly in the college. And I would like to personally move into more of a health ambassador role, if you like, and bring in people far superior to me in many ways in specific skills, and set up a unique health retreat or hospital, whatever you want to call it, where you can get the full range of real treatments in spite of your position. And I have a kind of Robin Hood view upon the things. Whether we'll be able to practically instigate that, only time will tell. But I'm already treating the rich and famous down to the haven't got a penny to rub together. So I don't see why there can't be that natural rebalancing. But no. we'll work on that. That's for others to work out.
Well, if you can lift the consciousness of your patients the way I think you can, then people coming to you with a lot of money would probably recognize the energy exchange required for them will be different to others, and that they should welcome it as a means of helping you to do what you need to do for everybody.
Yes.
One would hope. Yeah, it's changing. You're seeing their attitudes shift.
Absolutely. I mean, the number one thing that we see is people are literally sick and tired, forgive the pun, of going to doctors and getting prescriptions. So this is why I'm reaching out to the doctors and nurses on this planet. It is, they know they're losing. The people are walking away from them in droves. And I know they're predominantly good people. We know there's not good people in there. We know there's people, it's careers. We know all that. But there is still, and I've met them, not many doctors, but I know it's full of amazing people who actually genuinely do want to do great work. And what we have to offer them is I believe, knowledge that they can realize their own innate talents and abilities to truly help their fellow man and get enormous rewards, far more than just money, although I'm quite sure if a financial system still exists that they can still earn good money, but earning money in the truth and not what they've been doing.
Yes, and the other aspect of bringing mainstream medicine people into your level of knowledge is that they'll bring with them investigative tools that can actually ultimately quantify the effects that you've proven.
Exactly.
And
I have every faith in my fellow man once their own cells are opened up and they start to resonate again, and they see and they feel able. Because no one wants to know they're wrong. I've had to let go of pretty much everything I thought, and admit where they don't want to be wrong, and I don't want to attack them. It's not a fight.
No, it's not a fight, and it's not a matter of diminishing them by saying, well, you're just ignorant. They've genuinely been deceived. Genuinely.
Absolutely.
And there's a level of forgiveness for yourself and for others. That how would you know? We lived it in entire lives. It was our entire reality. How would we have known? It's just the energetic shifts, the presence of the internet, for instance.
Yes.
That means of being able to communicate directly with other people and spread this information, grow this information. They're the things that have made that's what's accelerated it, so that you could do, for instance, the amount of research that you've done in the last years of your life. There's a whole lot of reasons why all that stuff's happened. It's literally time. It's time for us to make this shift. And there's there can't be any blame. The concept of a notice of forgiveness is sheer genius, actually.
Thank you. I'd like you to read that blog. I think I sent you the link, and maybe Hope, I haven't got your email, but maybe Hope can send you the article version 3. If you give me your email address, I'll send it to you. So I wrote the other day, and it will again cover what you just covered. I absolutely believe there are wonderful people in medicine, and I wrote in this article they've been the most deceived because they genuinely doing, many of them, what they believe to be right, but they're wrong, and we have to help them to see that so that they can start doing what's right, or more important, start doing what's light.
Yes.
And then they become a formidable power. I honestly know that there are many, 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 many people far superior to me in a specialist field. My journey, my goal is to bring the complex to the simple, and a philosophy and a pathway to allow them to change their direction back to the light where they can do the most good.
One of the biggest problems in that particular process is them letting go of their ego, and because that's where really all of these, the problems of professional stature, for instance, the effect that's had on them. And what I'm finding is that people are now far more willing to let go of their egos, and I can only put it back to the lift in consciousness, that they're willing to put aside that aspect of them that tends to reject new information because it simply, they feel it diminishes everything that they've done. I think that egoic side effect is diminishing, and that will actually be one of the things that will allow it to come through.
They haven't got an option. They are under the same vibrational challenges that are hitting this planet. And if they are not opening and yielding and doing their own research, even if it may be secret to their co-professionals, the amount of stress rising in their cells, in their water, will create their dis-ease. So they have no option, ultimately. My goal is to help them before they hit their crisis. You see, it's the same vibration, it's the same water in them that is in you and I.
Jeremy, the next couple of years going to be the most fascinating experience this planet has ever had.
For sure.
Absolutely, for sure. Now, right at this moment of time, I think you've got to eat some food.
Yes, forgive me. I am exhausted now.
Yeah, I know. It's probably. What time is it there for you?
It's coming up to 9. I've had a very full week and lots of intense conversations. Absolutely wonderful conversations, and I'm very honoured that you'd even give me the time to speak with you, Chris. And thank you so much for all the work that you've done.
Absolutely pleasure. Yeah, look, I'm just getting going. I think you get the same answer from everyone who's doing this kind of thing, that they're really just finding their feet at this particular point in time, and so, which is, there's so many really, really talented people out there that are really engaging now. Every day.
Yes, there are.
We're talking to more and more brilliant people, and it's absolutely fantastic.
Yes, it's a really amazing time.
It is. And, we've got Hope on the call here, who's just the most amazing networker I've ever met.
Yes.
The number of people she's connected is probably beyond count at this stage, because it'll be multiplying in the background, many fold. So, yeah. Look, as far as having conversations, to be honest, elements of this conversation energetically are absolutely brilliant, and what I'm considering doing is sort of creating a commentary. I'm going to listen back over to this recording and probably I'll remove certain bits and maybe overlook some of the words we've used. But but one of the things I've really learned of late, Jeremy, is it's these first conversations that I have with people that are the most energetically meaningful.
Yeah.
If we now turn around and did an interview, even on air, it won't have quite the same emotional intensity.
Yes.
It's a really, really interesting phenomenon, and it's one of the reasons why I kind of like to do these almost without knowing people.
I do have a suggestion, though. Chris, if you are to, put this on the air, because I completely agree that the energy in this conversation was amazing, that we could put a tag on it, because at the time that this conversation will be aired, will also be when Jeremy's crowdfunding campaign is out and launched. So it's already launched now, but we'll have a blog post out as well so that we can direct people to where they can go to get in touch with Jeremy and how to help him out.
Well, one of the things we can do is create that tag right now, Hope, while you're here. Although if you want to step a bit closer to your laptop, because your voice volume just went down markedly at my end.
Okay.
It also includes that. It also includes that we help people all over the world via Skype. So if people, as well as the campaign, we're open to helping people via Skype, and we're actually just almost about to launch or relaunch something I've been trying to do for a long time, and we kind of had a half hit at it on one of the Lightworkers websites. We're launching a website called the Natural Health Service, which is an online e-clinic where you can Skype several people no matter where you are in the world. And that'll be connected ultimately to the physical clinic in the future as well. But, I must say, just to maybe close, that some of the best conversations I've ever heard were ones like this that were just recorded and then put out and broadcast.
Yeah, yep, that's absolutely true.
So I agree with your sentiments.
Absolutely true. Also, okay, Hope, so let's just do the tag this way. Hope, Jeremy has a crowdfunding campaign to assist him with his work that you've just commenced. Do you want to quickly describe that for us?
Yes. Give me 1 second, please. Okay, so Jeremy has a crowdfunding campaign. It's primarily to help him purchase the equipment that was taken from him that he needs right now in order to help other people. And the title of the campaign is Help the Doctor That Can Help You Heal. And you can find this campaign on Indiegogo.com. If you go there and you search under the title Help the Doctor That Can Help You Heal, you should be able to find it. And I will also put a link to it right here in the chat box that maybe you can post on the show as well so people can know where to go to this campaign. There's a beautiful video that was put together with Jeremy in here speaking about his experiences and what he does. And there's just a whole bunch of wonderful information as well as a budget of exactly what he needs the money for. So this would be wonderful if we can get this out there.
It would be. Obviously, Jeremy will be able to seek funding from the larger crowdfunding campaign that Fix the World and World Harmony are working on. But anyone who cares to contribute separately to Jeremy's crowdfunding would be absolutely appreciated. Jeremy, thank you so much for your time today. It's been a fantastic conversation. I know a tremendous amount more about this whole issue of health than I did when we started this conversation. I thought I had somewhat of a grip on things. Clear to me now, as always. There's much, much more to learn. So it's been an absolute pleasure speaking with you, and thank you for your time, and thank you so much for your work. Brilliant stuff.
Yep. You're more than welcome. Thank you.